So good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Environmental Social Justice. Today I have a special guest, Mr. Thor Bailey of the Green Carbon Nexus. So welcome to the show, Thor. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you, Wendy.
And so fellow Viking, have to bring that out. Love the name Thor personally. But you are with the Green Carbon Nexus Incorporated, and you focus on biomass and biochar. Could you please explain to the public what that means?
Okay. Basically, biomass is anything organic, such as trees, landscaping, residue. It's all organic, and it's around, around everybody. It's agriculture, it's forestry, it's urban, urban parks and recreation, that type of thing. So it's the byproduct of, functioning in a community.
And am I correct in the understanding that a lot of this just goes to landfills? People take that agriculture waste, the forest trimmings, and just dump it into a landfill.
Well, it's less in the landfill than you would think, but yes, there's diversion policies to divert it from landfill, but smaller, trailer loads here and there ends up in the landfill. But on a commercial basis, it's being literally composted and putting in larger and larger piles.
Okay, yeah, I know there's a big initiative to do more composting, especially in city dwellings. What is biochar? If you could explain the difference between biomass and biochar.
Well, literally, if we keep it simple with using a tree as an example, it's the carbon fiber that's actually absorbed in the tree as it grows.
Oh, yeah.
And then as we process it through a pyrolysis process, which is basically cooking the wood without oxygen, what's left is the carbon that was originally in the tree. So the theory is if the carbon's not in the atmosphere or in the tree or in the ground, it's one of those three places.
So what would you use biochar for after it's made?
Well, unfortunately, it's generally being commodity, or the state is started out, and not only a state, but the U.S. and even international basis, they're trying to commoditize it into a whole scale, large scale product that is valuable. And in reality, it's important, but it's not valuable.
That's good to know, actually, because money does run everything, unfortunately. Could you just quickly tell us your company, Green Carbon Nexus, what are they and what are they doing?
Well, the condensed version is Green Carbon Nexus has been evolving since actually we incorporated in 2004 in Fresno with a group of agribusiness farmers and growers and engineers. Over a period of years, we got close to developing several projects, such as a cogeneration plant for an ethanol plant down there and other things, utilizing or recycling the biomass as the feedstock. But
go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, I was going to say for economic reasons and timing and a lot of other variables that we didn't have control of, is we got very close to developing a project and spent quite a bit of our own partners' capital and a lot of time putting together projects on the front end that have basically we ended up having to just walk away from, because the economics and the economics killed the deal.
I can understand that, because in 2004, that was very proactive what you guys were doing. Not a lot of people were really focused on biomass or biochar or even agriculture. I mean, when people talk about renewable energy, they focused on electric, solar, wind, things like that. And a lot of people nowadays are recognizing the importance of agriculture and properly disposing of waste and properly disposing of biomass. When you and I talked briefly, there is a concept that your company is working on called the Biomass Mitigation Fund. Could you tell us as simply as possible, because you sent me a lot of data and there's a lot of chemistry in there and a lot of science, what is the fund and what are you planning on doing with it?
That's a unique question with a unique answer. It's basically, to boil it down to the core concept, is it's actually risk capital
Okay.
for seed money to develop front end projects and bypass the grant process.
I really like that idea because that, with all these infrastructure deals going down and everyone investing in ESG, private equity firms are looking for money to do impact investing, which
Right.
is huge right now because everybody wants to start focusing on investing in something that matters, investing in something that's changing the world and not harming it.
Right.
Kind of funny that we're thinking about this only now when we should have thought about it a couple hundred years ago. But hey, better late to the game than not. Um, what do you guys plan on doing? Because seed money and impact, do you plan on holding seminars? Do you plan on, networking is huge, yes. What are your plans to get this thing going?
Okay, to back up from the original question about who is Green Carbon Nexus,
Yeah.
is over the years, it's an accumulation of a handful of, well, when I say handful, probably 10 to 15 partners or associates that are willing to contribute knowledge and time, I guess, with the knowledge to help create a new infrastructure with a younger generation.
I love the fact you brought up younger generation because I think it was our first conversation. You said you're doing a lot of this for your grandchildren. And many people don't think that far in advance. They don't think of the next generations.
Well, but it's not only me. That's where part of this government rhetoric is. We've got to do this for our kids,
Yes.
and I guess and that's been the last 40 years that I've been involved with biomass. Is that's been a good goal and agenda. We're doing it for the future, but unfortunately, the economics. We have a short-term mentality, and
Yeah.
we've got to make money. This is where the state gets tangled up with good intentions, by the way. It's nothing, it's not, they just don't understand the liability of managing a pile of biomass because it's not inert. It's, live, it's biology, and everything that can go wrong with the feedstock pile will, like
Murphy's
it'll
Law.
burn down. And then getting it out of there's so much, it's everywhere. So therefore, it must be easy to get and cheap. And it's quite reverse of that. It's 180 degree of what is assumed. We have this surplus of biomass, whether it's in the forest now the fires are taking care of a lot of it, but it's everywhere and it's easy to get. But there isn't a infrastructure support system, let's call it a type of franchise concept where at smaller scale you can process the wood. This is the ultimate dividing. If there's only two paths, it's scaling up to improve volume and profits, or it's scaling down to accommodate the real problem, which is the logistics.
I like the fact you mentioned wildfires. I've done a lot of research on fires. I've written some papers on fires. I've participated in a lot of groups on wildfires. And using, our forests are catching on fire, and it's not really the best thing to have happen. If we can reduce wildfire risk by getting the biomass out there and the biochar and using it alternatively, I don't see how anyone could argue against that. It just sounds like a perfect scenario to me.
Well, and that's where the logistics is everything. I mean, it's whether it's in the urban arena, whether it's in the forest or agriculture, it's logistics and how to get access to the material.
Yeah.
So there is, and it's basically going back to the Native American Indians, especially in California.
Yeah.
They had a solution when they left the foothills of the mountains to come down into the valley where it was warmer during the winter. They burned off it systematically with a plan.
Yeah.
I don't know how they did it without iPhones to communicate, but they did.
Smarter than us.
They burned off certain areas. So I think if there's any starting point that the state can focus on and be really productive is in what they call WUI, which is wildland urban interface.
Yes.
And that's where the city of Paradise, or community of Paradise technically, and these communities in the foothills, they're an ideal, uh, need. It's not a case study, it's a need. And the need's
Yeah,
been there for 20, 30 years,
absolutely.
but the solutions haven't kept up with the need.
Well, it sounds like your solution is definitely at the forefront, and it has been for a while. And I think your timing right now is perfect for it to take off.
Right. And so this is where, unfortunately, you can't get involved in this industry without somewhere between environmental, social engineering at all, meaning it's a very complicated issue. But
Yeah.
the it's labor intensive, especially on a smaller scale like in lots and backyards in communities. The logging industry is well established. It'll take care of itself. There's not an issue with the logging industry.
Yeah.
Just they have access to the logs, and they have theoretically markets for the logs, but it's the wildland urban interface that is a huge dilemma.
Yes, it
And
is.
the biggest issue that, back to impact investing, is why are you doing it? I guess the best answer I can come up with is it's the right thing to do.
It is.
And that becomes then where the economics come into the picture is, well, how do we make money doing the right thing? And the state is mandating we won't subsidize something that's not sustainable.
Oh, interesting.
That's
I
the
didn't know that.
dilemma. Okay, it's been they've been working on, as long as I've been involved in the industry, literally 40 years,
Uh-huh.
starting in 1981 when the oil energy crisis. And so for 40 years, the state can only support sustainable programs. And here we are today, and there's absolutely nothing that's sustainable.
No. Well, we're getting there. Slowly getting there. We're
Well,
baby
we're
steps.
getting there. We're getting there in rhetoric, and that's where I think when I say back to our Green Carbon Nexus, I've decided that my associates are cheerleaders, allies. They're available as, case studies or testimonials, but they're not really involved. We're older, and I'm I'm 74, going on 75, and it's time for the younger generation to figure out what they have to do to make a difference. And I think what I'm trying to do with Green Carbon Nexus, as a really more of a marketing, public relations, education group based on 40 years of history, is come up with, okay, the best thing our group can offer you is what not to do.
Yeah. And the
And,
education on,
yeah,
yeah, you guys do a lot of educational outreach as well, which is wonderful.
right.
No, I think that's great. I mean, personally, just going back to the wildfire issue, what we saw in Colorado this past weekend should not have happened. So
Right.
we are definitely in a dire straits situation where we need to reduce the biomass, reduce the wildfire risk, education outreach. I'll let you close out on any words of wisdom you have for the younger generation out there.
Let's see. Well, it's team up and come up with new solutions. And I think if the younger generation stays focused on grassroots solutions, it'll grow from there.
I love the fact you said team up because none of this gets done without collaboration and everybody working together.
Right.
This
And I
cannot be
have,
done slowly.
yeah, and I'm working with a really handful of younger, motivated, very capable individuals that are getting involved. And hopefully we can start working again, build on that platform. But this is a statewide issue, and 5 or 6 individuals isn't even what we intend to do is try and put together some type of franchise program.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's a really good idea because then everybody can take control of their own franchise.
Right, and we help on the front end establish, and this is where the mitigation fund concept comes in. If you were to ask what would you do with it, the first thing we have to do, whether it's one group or 2 groups or one person, is we've got to go out in advance and buy a block of liability insurance.
It's always back to the insurance, no matter how far I try to get away from insurance.
That's the end of the day. That's where we're either going to pay upfront or after the fact.
Yeah, and I'd rather do
And,
mitigation than responsive actions.
and I'll go so far as to say my general observation after watching this industry for 40 years is there's a lot of money being made to solve the problem after the disaster, not before.
Oh yeah. No,
so
and
that's the crossroads. Do we do it after or before?
It's got to be before. And I've been preaching to the choir as well as you have. I've only been doing it for about 3 or 4 years. You've been doing it for 40. We need to get ahead of the problem and not just respond to the problem. And that's just not, it's not just the biomass issue. It's everything with respect to sustainability and climate change. We need to start getting ahead of our problems. We have to stop responding.
And you just delivered the message to the new generation.
Get ahead of the problem? Yeah.
Yes.
I love this. So guys, please check out Green Carbon Nexus. Check out Thor Bailey. What they're doing is a great job, and jump on board. Go with them. Use them for education outreach. Impact investing in the mitigation fund. It's all brilliant work that you guys are doing. So
okay, thanks, Wendy. Appreciate your interest.
Absolutely. You guys take care, and we will see you.